You pretended to be poor just to marry me? Who are you?
My name is David, and I grew up with everything except the one thing that mattered. I'm 37 years old now, and I come from generational wealth. My family owns real estate developments across 3 states. My trust fund is more than most people will make in their entire lives. My parents raised me in a penthouse apartment overlooking the city, and I've never had to worry about money for a single day of my life. But I've also never had to worry that someone might love me just for me. When I was younger, it didn't matter. Girls liked me because I was rich. Women wanted to be near me because of my family's name. People were interested in me, but nobody was interested in Marcus, the actual person. They were interested in the portfolio and the access and the possibilities that came with being connected to someone like me. By the time I was 30, I'd made a decision. I was going to find out what it felt like to be loved for who I actually was, not for what I had. So I did something that sounds insane now. I created a false identity. I moved to a different city. I got a job working construction, legitimate work, physically demanding, honest work. I rented a small apartment in a modest neighborhood. I wore jeans and work boots and t-shirts. I had calluses on my hands from actual labor. I ate at diners and took the bus and lived paycheck to paycheck on the modest salary I'd negotiated for myself. To everyone around me, I was David Chen, a construction worker trying to build a better life. It wasn't completely false. David Chen was a real person. It was just a version of me that I'd separated from the money and the family name and the privilege. But the person was real. The values were real. The desire to be a good person was real. And that's how I met Sarah. She was working as a freelance copy editor, living in the apartment above mine in that modest neighborhood. We met in the hallway when I was bringing in groceries from the market. I say met, but really what happened was she opened her apartment door right as I was passing, and I nearly dropped a bag of tomatoes. She laughed, this genuine, unguarded laugh, and asked if I needed help. I was immediately struck by her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she looked at me and didn't see anything except the person in front of her. No dollar signs. No potential. Just a guy carrying groceries who'd almost dropped tomatoes. "I've got it," I said, steadying myself. "But thanks." "Well, if you drop those, I'll hear them splat," she said with a grin. "So I'm partially self-interested in your success here." That's how we became friends. Over tomatoes and casual hallway encounters and eventually, coffee on the apartment building stoop. Sarah was brilliant. She could take a piece of mediocre writing and make it sing. She loved her work, even though it didn't pay well and required her to hustle for clients. She talked about words and language and storytelling with the kind of passion that made me understand why people became writers. She had dreams that had nothing to do with money. She wanted to write a book, to start a literary magazine, to build a community of writers. She didn't care that I was a construction worker. In fact, she seemed to like that about me. She thought it was noble, the way I worked with my hands, the way I could build things. She respected my honesty and my willingness to do hard labor for fair pay. And slowly, I fell in love with her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she saw me. She saw the person I actually was, thoughtful, kind, interested in learning, and she liked that person. She wasn't waiting for me to become more successful. She wasn't hoping I'd hit it big someday. She was just happy to be with me, right then, in that moment, when I was a construction worker living paycheck to paycheck. It was everything I'd been looking for. After a year of dating, I asked her to marry me. We got married in a small ceremony with a few friends. We moved into a slightly larger apartment. We were happy. It was real. And then everything fell apart. The disaster came from my brother. My brother, who I'd cut ties with when I'd moved away to start this experiment. My brother, who I'd asked repeatedly to not contact me or acknowledge that he knew where I was. My brother, who showed up at our apartment on a Saturday morning while Sarah was at the farmer's market. "You have to stop this," he said, and he was angry in a way I'd never seen him be. "Mom is worried sick. Dad is demanding you come back to the company. This little experiment has gone on long enough." "I'm not coming back," I said. "And I need you to leave. Sarah will be home soon." "Sarah," my brother said, and then he laughed. Not kindly. Does she know? Does your wife know that you're David Chen from the Chen Development Corporation? That you're worth millions? That your entire relationship is built on a lie? My stomach dropped. You need to go, I said, and I moved toward the door to open it. But Sarah's keys were already in the lock. She came in carrying grocery bags, and she saw my brother, and she saw my face, and I watched her process that something was very, very wrong. What's going on? She asked, setting down the bags. Nothing, I said. My brother was just leaving. Your brother? Sarah looked between us. I didn't know you had a brother in the city. He doesn't, my brother said, and I wanted to kill him. He doesn't have a brother, he doesn't have a job, and apparently he doesn't have an honest bone in his body. Ask him about the Chen Development Corporation. Ask him about his trust fund. Ask him why he's been lying to you for 3 years. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Sarah looked at me, and I could see her processing, recalculating, trying to figure out if any of this made sense. Is that true? She asked quietly. Sarah, let me explain. Is that true? She repeated, and her voice was sharp in a way I'd never heard before. I couldn't lie to her anymore. Lying had gotten me into this. Lying had built our entire relationship on a foundation of sand. Yes, I said. It's true. My family is wealthy. Generationally wealthy. I have a trust fund that's larger than you can probably imagine. I've been living as David Chen, the construction worker, because I wanted to know what it felt like to be loved just for who I am, not for what I have. She set down the grocery bags she was holding very carefully. Then she walked into our bedroom and closed the door. I didn't follow her. I didn't have the right to. She didn't talk to me for a week. We lived in the same apartment, but she barely acknowledged my existence. She slept on the couch. She went to work and came home and avoided me with the kind of precision that comes from genuine hurt. On the 8th day, she finally agreed to talk to me. Who are you? She asked, and she was sitting on the couch, and I was standing in the doorway, and there was a chasm between us that felt impossibly wide. Because I feel like I married a completely different person than the one I know. I'm the same person, I said. The version of me that you fell in love with, that's real. That's who I actually am. You pretended to be poor, she said, and her voice broke. You pretended to be struggling. I spent so much time worried about your financial security, wanting you to get better opportunities, and you were, what? Playing a game. It wasn't a game, I said. Sarah, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to find something real. By lying to me? She stood up, and she was shaking. How is that real? How is a relationship real when it's built on a fundamental deception? It wasn't built on deception, I said. It was built on the truth of who I am as a person. The money, that was the lie. The money and the family name and the privilege. That was the version of me I was running away from because it was toxic. It made people love me for the wrong reasons. So you decided to lie instead? She asked. You decided that deceiving your wife was better than being honest? I was honest, I said. Everything I told you about myself was true. I just didn't tell you about one part of my life that I was trying to escape. She stared at me, and I could see her deciding something. I need you to understand what you did, she said finally. You made me fall in love with a version of you that doesn't exist. Or rather, he exists, but he's only half of who you are. And you hid the other half because you thought it would contaminate me somehow. You treated me like I wasn't capable of loving you completely. You treated me like I had to be protected from the truth. That's not what I... That's exactly what you did, she interrupted. You made a decision about who I was and who I should be without asking me. You decided that I needed to love poor David, not rich David, because somehow poor David was more real. But you know what? I loved you. The real you, the complete you, including the parts you didn't tell me about. She walked past me into the bedroom and locked the door. The next 2 months were the hardest of my life. Sarah asked me to move out. Not because she wanted a divorce, but because she needed space. Space to process the betrayal. Space to figure out if our marriage could survive a foundation of lies. I moved into a hotel and started going to therapy. Real therapy, not the kind where I was trying to understand my motivations, but the kind where a professional could help me see how deeply I'd violated Sarah's trust. My therapist asked me something that haunted me. Did you trust Sarah enough to tell her the truth? Or did you make the decision for her about whether she could handle knowing the truth? The answer was painful. I hadn't trusted her. I'd been so convinced that money would corrupt her love that I'd never given her the choice to love me completely. I wrote her letters. Not apologetic letters trying to explain away what I'd done, but honest letters about what I'd learned. I told her about my therapy. I told her about my family and the toxic relationship I'd had with money and approval. I told her why I'd felt compelled to lie, and I took full responsibility for the hurt it had caused. After 8 weeks, she agreed to meet me. We sat in a coffee shop that was neutral territory. Sarah looked like she hadn't been sleeping well. She looked sad in a way that made me realize how much my lie had cost her. "I've been angry," she said without preamble. "I've been hurt. I felt betrayed and stupid for not seeing what was happening." "You're not stupid," I said. "I was deliberately hiding something. That's on me." "I know it is," she said. "But what I've realized in my own therapy is that I need to decide if the person I love, the real person, the complete person including his family, money, and his wealth and his privilege, is someone I can trust. Not the version of you that you created. The actual you." "I understand," I said. "Do you?" she asked. "Because the actual you includes a man who lied to his wife for years. That's part of who you are. That's something I have to accept if I'm going to stay with you." "Yes," I said. "That's true. I did lie to you. And I'm deeply sorry for that." She was quiet for a long moment. "The thing that I keep coming back to," she said slowly, "is that you were right about something. You did want real love. And I did love you. The real you. But you never gave me the chance to love the complete version of you. You made that choice for me." "I know," I said. "And I'm sorry." "I'm not sure I can forgive you yet," she said. "But I'm not sure I can leave you either. You're my husband. I married you, and we made vows, and part of those vows is working through hard things. Even this." We didn't reconcile immediately. Sarah moved back into our apartment after 3 months, but we slept in separate rooms. We went to couples therapy. We had difficult conversations about trust and honesty and what it would take to rebuild what had been broken. What I learned was that reconciliation isn't a moment. It's a process. It's small choices, repeated over time, to show someone that you can be trusted again. It's being transparent even when it's uncomfortable. It's accepting that the betrayal will take time to heal, and you can't rush someone else's timeline. After 6 months of living in separate rooms, Sarah agreed to share a bed again. After a year, she said she believed me when I said I was sorry. After 2 years, she said she'd forgiven me. And on the 3rd anniversary of when she discovered the truth, I told her something I'd been planning for months. "I want to tell you who David Chen really is," I said. "I want to introduce you to that version of myself that I was always running from. I want you to meet my family. I want you to see the whole of who I am, not the poor version, not the rich version, but the complete person." "Are you sure?" she asked. "Because part of the reason I married you was because you seemed happy as a construction worker. Are you going to be happy with the money?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I know that I want to find out with you. I want to stop running from parts of myself. And I want to stop making decisions for you about what you should or shouldn't know." So I introduced Sarah to my family. We moved into a beautiful apartment that I could actually afford, not a penthouse, but something nice. I started helping with the family business, but in a way that felt authentic to my values. Sarah continued her work with writers and eventually started the literary magazine she'd always dreamed about. Our marriage wasn't the same as it had been in those early years when I was pretending to be poor. It was better. It was built on honesty. It was built on knowing each other completely, flaws included. 5 years after the truth came out, we were sitting on our apartment balcony, watching the sunset. "Do you regret marrying me?" I asked. "Knowing everything you know now?" Sarah thought about it seriously. "No," she said finally. "But I also don't regret the anger I felt when I found out. I don't regret the time I needed to process the betrayal. I don't regret making you work to earn my trust back. All of that was necessary. I wanted real love, I said. That's why I lied. I wanted to know if someone could love me just for who I am. You found that, Sarah said. But it took losing it and earning it back to understand what it actually means. Real love isn't about being loved despite who you are. It's about being loved completely, including all the complicated parts. Including the parts that are messy and contradictory and human. She took my hand. I love you, David. The complete you, the wealthy version, the construction worker version, the scared version, the version that lied to me. All of it. But I had to earn the right to love all of that by going through the pain of the betrayal. And I had to go through that before I could trust that your love was real too. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more heartfelt tales, and drop a comment letting us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. Thanks for being part of the Unscripted Stories community.